Two Chinese vessels collide in the South China Sea, a dangerous accident in contested waters that immediately triggers a high-stakes response. Within hours, two United States warships begin shadowing a Chinese vessel, signaling that the region remains on edge and under constant watch. The South China Sea is more than just a body of water. It is a theater of power projection, economic lifelines, and national pride. Every year, $3 trillion worth of trade passes through its shipping lanes. It contains vast reserves of oil and natural gas, and it is home to some of the richest fishing grounds in the world. For decades, it has also been the epicenter of contested territorial claims between China, Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan. Among all these players, China has been the most aggressive, building artificial islands, fortifying reefs with military bases, and deploying its naval and coast guard fleets to assert control over what it calls the 9-dash line. But this expansion has not gone unchallenged. The United States, which does not have direct territorial claims in the region, has long maintained that freedom of navigation must be preserved. For Washington, the South China Sea is not only about trade routes, it is about upholding international law, preventing one power from dominating Asia's maritime crossroads, and reassuring allies that America remains a Pacific power. The U.S. has briefly deployed two warships in a disputed South China Sea shoal where two Chinese ships collided earlier in the week while trying to drive away a smaller Philippine ship in a high seas accident that raised alarms about maritime safety. Both China and the Philippines claim Scarborough Shoal and other outcroppings in the South China Sea. Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan also lay overlapping claims in the contested waters. The USS Higgins, a guided missile destroyer, and USS Cincinnati, a littoral combat ship, were shadowed by a Chinese Navy ship while sailing about 30 nautical miles, 55 kilometers, from the Scarborough Shoal. There were no reports of any untoward incident, Commodore J. Tariella of the Philippine Coast Guard said, citing information from U.S. officials and a Philippine surveillance flight. The U.S. Navy has for years staged what it calls freedom of navigation voyages and overflights in the South China Sea to challenge China's restrictions and its demand for entry notifications in virtually the entire stretch of the disputed waters that it claims. That has angered China, and its forces have had close runs-in with U.S. warships and aircraft on such patrols in international waters and airspace. The deployment happened after Washington's ambassador to Manila, Mary Kay Carlson, on Tuesday condemned the latest reckless action by China directed against a Philippine vessel in Scarborough. The rich fishing atoll off the northwestern Philippines has been the scene of increasingly tense confrontations between the Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard, fishing, and other ships in recent years. The Philippines, a former U.S. colony, is Washington's oldest treaty ally in Asia. The U.S. has repeatedly warned that it is obligated to defend the Philippines if Filipino forces come under an armed attack, including in the South China Sea. On Monday, a Chinese Navy destroyer and a Chinese Coast Guard ship accidentally collided while trying to block and drive away a smaller Philippine Coast Guard ship, the BRP Suluan, about 10.5 nautical miles, 19 kilometers, from Scarborough. Video footage made public by the Philippine Coast Guard show the Chinese Coast Guard ship blasting its powerful water cannon and a number of Chinese personnel standing at the bow shortly before that section was hit by the fast-turning Chinese Navy ship. Shortly after the collision, the video shows the heavily shattered bow of the Chinese Coast Guard ship without the Chinese personnel who were standing on deck before the crash. The Chinese Navy ship sustained deep dents and what appeared to be linear gushes on its hull. Japan, Australia, and New Zealand expressed alarm on Wednesday over the dangerous maneuvers that led to the collision in the busy waters, a key global trade route. Japan upholds the rule of law and opposes any actions which increase tensions. Our concern goes to the repeated actions in the South China Sea, the Japanese ambassador to Manila, Endo Kazuya, said in a post on X. The Australian embassy in Manila expressed concern about the dangerous and unprofessional conduct of Chinese vessels near Scarborough Shoal involving the Philippine Coast Guard, saying in a statement the incident highlights the need for de-escalation, restraint, and respect for international law. This is a learning experience for the People's Republic of China, Tariela, the Philippine Coast Guard Commodore, told a news conference in Manila. For so many years, we have been reminding them to stop dangerous maneuvers, to stop risky blockings, to adhere to the anti-collision regulations, because if there is a very high chance of miscalculation, this kind of collision incident would happen. Tariela spoke a few hours after a Chinese fighter jet flew as close as 500 feet, 150 meters, to try to drive away a Philippine Coast Guard plane on a surveillance flight on Wednesday over the Scarborough with invited journalists on board. The Chinese jet carried out dangerous maneuvers for about 20 minutes, including flying about 200 feet above the small Philippine aircraft, Tariela said. Each incident like this raises the same haunting question. Could the South China Sea become the spark of a larger conflict? Military analysts warn that the greatest danger lies not in deliberate war, but in miscalculation. A collision, a misunderstood maneuver, or an accident at sea could trigger a chain of events neither side truly wants. The shadowing of the Chinese vessel by 2 U.S. warships was not an act of war, but it was a reminder of how fragile peace in the South China Sea really is. As the world watches, the region remains one misstep away from crisis. The South China Sea has become the world's most dangerous chessboard, where collisions, shadowing operations, and close calls could decide the future of Asia. 2 Chinese ships collide, 2 American warships shadow, and the world holds its breath. Will these waters remain a theater of deterrence, or will they become the spark of open conflict? Only time will tell. Thank you for watching. If you found this deep dive analysis insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more detailed coverage of military and geopolitical flashpoints around the world.